This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Alyssa says it's fine just the way it is, and too much more would probably be too much. So
ask her. You don't even need to tell me this answer. Ask her if it was 4 inches longer, would that be problematic?
Oh, that's right now.
I bet you she'd say yes.
Actually, here, hold on. I'll call her. I'll put her on speaker.
That's fucking weird, dude.
She'll be like, "Hi, babe. You're off already?" Mm-hmm. Be like, "No."
Make sure she knows this is not for the podcast.
Yeah, but I'm recording, so we can put it in the front. See if she answers. Shit.
Would you put it in the podcast? That conversation? It's fucking wild. I hope you would at least ask her if that was okay.
No. Just put it in there, she'll listen to it, and she'll be surprised that she's on the podcast again.
Talking about if your dick would be too big if it was 4 inches longer. Jesus.
I just messaged her. I said, call me. So we'll see if she calls.
I love how you had no idea that I was talking about the same thing as you.
You're just so goddamn wholesome, B.
I mean, I was being completely honest. We weren't making jokes here. You were making jokes. I was talking honest. Welcome in to this episode of the Practice Squad. Unusual start. Stroz and I, we're only 6.5 minutes into the call.
We've already done a whole show, B.
I know. That's the problem. Typically, we'll hang out for 10 minutes, and maybe we'll go a little bit into a topic, but, like, we just decided we had to go because we were already really getting into our first topic. Coming up a little later on in the show, I had not only what was the worst experience I've ever had at a restaurant, but I think one of the worst experiences that anyone has ever had at a restaurant. And the way I want to approach this, Stroz, I want to know what you, like, I timelined it out because I told the story a couple of times now. And as it was happening, I was like, you know what? I don't even care because this is a great story and the story's better than the food could ever be. So I timelined it out and I want to hear like how you would react. Just interject when you would have done things differently than myself and my group of people.
This sounds so interesting.
Oh, I think it is. And at the end of the show, Stroz and I were trying to figure out something around Jared Goff because we both have this thing in our brain that says Jared Goff was once an MVP candidate, but also both say, no, he's a bad quarterback. So here's what I want to put out there. Both of us think the ceiling is probably about good game manager, right? Not going to win you games, but won't lose them for you. You get to pick one version of Jared Goff for this upcoming season. Either A, he's brutal, and it's very obvious he's not your guy. Or B, he looks like a good game manager. A guy maybe you can, I don't want to say build around, but build with. You get one of the two, which one would you prefer? But first, Stroz, the reason we had to jump right into this topic, you send topics fairly regularly that make me go, how stupid is this? And this was one of those. You asked me the question, when are people going to get tired of Dan Campbell? When is it too much? And my answer is, if you like Dan Campbell when he was hired, and you're already thinking about this, I have no interest in you as a person. You are a waste of time. Imagine ordering 100 chocolate chip cookies because you're a fan of chocolate chip cookies, and 3 cookies in saying, oh boy, I don't know if I should have ordered this many cookies. Because that's what this is. If in June of the year you hired Dan Campbell, you're wondering when it's too much, you're a waste of my time.
Hey, babe. So,
are you recording?
Me and B we're talking pre-show, and I had to call you to ask you this question that B posed to me to ask you. So I've got you on right now, and I'm just gonna ask you this, okay?
Okay.
So human anatomy, okay? So 4 more inches. Would 4 more inches be problemsome?
Yes.
B's hands go up.
See how matter-of-factly she said it?
4 more inches sounds terrible and super painful.
But we touched the back of the pickle jar, babe.
Babe.
Yeah.
4 more inches, I don't even think you'd get all the way in there.
Possible. I'd have an elbow like Mr. Marcus. And you know who Mr. Marcus is? Porn star. Gigantic black cock. Huge. That'd be cool. Wouldn't
You're
it?
ridiculous.
No,
4 more inches sounds terrible.
It wouldn't be cool.
I told you.
I mean,
No.
what was BDK working with, babe?
All right, that's enough.
All right.
You're the worst.
All right, I'll call you when I'm done. Bye, babe.
Okay, bye.
Bye. We'll just leave that right there.
I love how matter-of-factly she said that.
Here's
Like,
the
there
part you
was no
should.
doubt, which is basically what I told you pre-show. I don't know how you're going to cut this all.
I'm just gonna leave it right there. We're gonna
Okay.
come. We're just gonna pick up. We're just gonna keep going. This is a surprise for everybody listening. Here's your happy little nugget of filth.
All I want known, and we'll jump right back into the Lions topic somehow, is I told Stroz that 4 more inches would be too much, and he wasn't sure.
Also,
I was just talking about cookies.
I know we go straight to wiener sizes. Here's the thing. I like how what you should like is that I called it out on BDK, who is was it Big Dick Kevin? I think that's what I named him. I don't know. He was a dude who had grande wiener, like grande. Anyways, I'm gonna get in so much trouble with this podcast. She's gonna be so upset. So that'll be fun.
I was very clear. It didn't-
Back to chocolate chip cookies, though.
All I really wanted was like you to know that you were wrong. I didn't need it to be done on the podcast.
But I think it's fun. I think it's interesting.
But anyway, Stroh, some people are even considering when they'd be tired of Dan Campbell.
Well, this is why I pose this question to you, because I feel like at this moment in time, the fan base is starting to splinter a little bit. And I won't say it's a huge group that are splintering off from we love Dan Campbell. I still enjoy Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell is just a dude who's got a ton of personality. I feel like if Dan Campbell came out, ripped his shirt off, and was covered in baby oil and ran around like Macho Man or Hulk Hogan, I think I'd love him even more. But there's a large contingent, or there's a starting to become a large contingent that think he's a clown show. Thinks when he shows up to do a press conference wearing a helmet for racing,
how
he's a
is it
clown.
imaginably possible that you didn't get that by saying his team was going to bite 3 different kneecaps on the same person in an introductory press conference?
Look, man, I don't know. I can't speak for those people. I love the guy. I think he's great. The national media seems to have a bit of an issue with it as well.
The national media already thought he was a clown show, and understandably so.
Yes, they did.
If you were out on him from the beginning, I got nothing against it. I didn't necessarily love or hate. What I liked is he's obviously got energy, and I'm down for an energetic coach, the opposite of what you had in Matt Patricia. I don't care about the antics. I don't think the antics are going to make or break you. They make you a likable person, but I don't think they're going to make a dramatic difference on the quality of football coach you are.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't understand how it's possible you flipped. Like, if you flipped, how do you make any decisions in your life? You cannot have buyer's remorse in June.
I love this is why this was so good. Like, you thought it was stupid. You thought it was a dumb topic. But your response
I want to clarify.
In general, your response for everything tells me everything I need to know. The vitriol at which you responded and the quickness that you responded back to the question was all I needed to know. And I was like, cool, it's going in and it's going to be number one.
You understand it, but I want to make sure people listening understand it. I think it's a fun thing to discuss, hence not a bad topic. I think what's stupid is that people exist who liked Dan Campbell and are no longer sure. So have you ever in your life been told this is what something is, and this quickly before you've even seen, like, you can't even compare this to normal life. The reason I used the 3 out of 100 cookies sample is because he was hired what? Do you know his hire date?
I think it was back in
March.
No,
it must have been earlier than that, because March it must have been like December, January.
I'll look it up real quick.
So like, let's say December. I definitely don't think it was before December, because you would have still been in season at that point. Mm-hmm. It must have been January or February. Anyways, you've gone through 5 months in a season like of non-football. There's been 0 games played. There's been some minimal roster decisions. But, like, we haven't even – no post-game press conferences. We're working with such a fraction. Like, it'd be like buying a car and deciding that you weren't sure if you liked it the moment you turn out of the freaking lot. Like, we haven't seen this guy in action. How have you changed your mind already?
It was January.
January. 5 months. 0 games. He hasn't even coached a preseason game.
Look, I think a lot of times what happens is people kind of they just kind of misunderstand what's going on. Like, this is a guy who is just exploding with personality. He's a fun guy. He likes to have fun. He talks a whole lot. And if you give him a couple beers, he'll talk your ear off. This is what he reminds me of.
I don't know that he needs beers to talk your ear off.
Probably not. But this is what he reminds me of. He reminds me of the frat guy who hasn't really grown up and was smart enough to start his own business and is successful. And he's the guy who runs that business. He basically cracks a beer at 2:00 in the afternoon, wears board shorts, and is very laissez-faire about everything. But he's all about business, and the business is successful. That's what he reminds me of. And I think what happens is people have this vision of what your head football coach should be to be successful. It has to be this Bill Belichick. It has to be this Jim Cowher-esque kind of guy where they show up, they talk football, it's all football, nothing but football. You can't have a personal life. You can't have a personality. When you look at other coaches like Pete Carroll, Pete Carroll's, I think, a prime example. Pete Carroll's got a ton of personality. Rubs a lot of people the wrong way sometimes. If what Dan Campbell was doing was in Seattle, he'd be praised. If what he was doing was in New Orleans, he'd be praised. If what he was doing was in Kansas City, he would be praised. But it's because he's with the Lions, and the Lions haven't won anything, and they're the laughingstock of the NFL most years.
Okay, so first of all, if after coming out of Patricia, what you need in your coach is for him to be super buttoned up and professional, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not saying that way doesn't work, but it's silly to act like that's the only way that works.
Right.
But even then, I respect that if that's been your take from day one. My only issue here is with people who have buyer's remorse. Like the profile of the person who liked Dan Campbell and has changed his mind. It's the same person who went to college and changed their major so many times that they never got a degree. Nothing wrong with those people, but like at some point in life, you got to make a decision and commit to it. And it doesn't mean you can never change your mind again, but you can't do it this quickly. I'm not telling you we can't get 6 games in and the guy looks like a clown show in game. I just, nothing has changed. Mm-hmm. You saw what he was in February. He's the same thing in June. And if you have a problem with it now and you didn't then, reevaluate your entire life, every single part of it.
Yeah, I don't know what to really tell you, because the moment the dude showed up and talked about biting kneecaps off and punching you in the face and being mean and playing hard and competing all day, you basically knew what you had. And if it wasn't a problem then, it sure as shit shouldn't be a problem now, because nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is now he has more microphones in front of his face because he's now the Lions head coach. So now you get to see him and you get inundated with him a little bit more. So if the issue is that you're seeing more of him and not less of him, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you there.
All right, coming up again later on in the show, we're going to talk about Jared Goff and what of 2 scenarios, which one would you prefer? But first, and it's so funny because my experience at this restaurant, Stroz, and I'm not going to name the restaurant.
Was it the pizza place that was once a strip club?
No, but I'm not going to name the restaurant. Anyways,
why not?
I don't want to.
I was trying to twist your arm to get
I'll say this. They have good food. But this should be a bad experience. And like, you're going to hear why it is. But I swear to you, I left fine with it. I left thinking this is hilarious. I'm going to tell this story to so many people. I honestly, it turns out way better than good food. So let me pull out the timeline of these events. So there's 5 of us. And the first of us gets to the restaurant at 8:10. I show up around 8:30. He's still not seated. It's not super busy. In fact, probably half the tables are empty. I don't have any idea why it took them so long to seat him. But finally, around 8:35, we get seated. So I only had to wait 5 minutes. No big deal for me. Pretty much everyone showed up by about 8:40. 8:50, 15 minutes after we get our seat, a waiter shows up for the first time. He asks if anyone's helped us. You already, and by the way, I want you to jump in at any point if you would have handled things differently. I don't think 15 minutes in, you're a little annoyed maybe, but you're probably not thinking anything yet, right?
No, for me, I'm already starting to think things. And like, so it depends. Am I you in this story, or am I the guy who's already been waiting for almost 30 minutes?
That's a fair question. Me. Okay. Yeah. No, if I had waited 30 minutes for a table and then 15 minutes to see somebody, I would have been pissed.
Yeah.
You're right, because I didn't experience it from that point of view. Anyways, 15 minutes in, we see a waiter for the first time, noticeably disgruntled. asks if anyone's seen us. We say no. He basically says, look, I'm super overwhelmed. I'm going to make sure that they actually want me to like take care of you guys first and not give it to somebody else. So that's about 8:50. Remember, everyone showed up around 8:40. We had the full table. About 9 o'clock, 10 minutes later, another waiter shows up. Asks if anyone's seen us yet. We say, well, one guy stopped by to figure out if we were his table, but like he told us he was too busy. So this waiter says, okay, well, let me see. Let me see if they want me to help you out. We watch him talk to somebody and come back visibly frustrated that he's our waiter. So this is around 9:10. Again, she's going to keep time-limiting this. 8:40 is when we sat down. So 30 minutes, he comes back, takes our drink and appetizer order.
Okay, so right here, I'm going to pause. I'm going to grab the manager. I'm going to get myself up, and I'm going to grab the manager because I've just waited 30 minutes before I've even gotten a drink. And I'm
before you've ordered a drink.
But you haven't gotten it yet.
Right.
So like unless he's in the back actually making my beer, or unless he's I don't know, if you're drinking pop, or I don't know if you call it soda now because you're in Houston.
I called it pop. I'm adamant that it's pop.
All right, I'm just making sure we didn't lose you. That's all. You're still one of the good ones. If you're drinking pop, I don't know if he's got to carbonate the water or what. Like I'm talking to a manager and being like, what the hell's going on here? Like, this is the experience we've had thus far, and this has been absolute trash.
We probably should have, but I'll say, like, we were all having a good time. It wasn't a huge deal.
Okay. This
whole time, we're frustrated, but also kind of laughing.
Okay, so mind you, I've been in a situation like this, and so far I've been where you, and I've been where you're at, and I'm okay with it.
I genuinely believe this experience that I had is probably like in the 1 percentile of worst service ever. Mm-hmm. I think they should have closed the restaurant. That's how bad it was.
Okay.
So about 10 minutes later, after we've placed the appetizer and drink order, he did bring the drinks out in a timely manner. But about 10 minutes after we placed that order, he comes back and takes our food order. Another 10 to 15 minutes go by. My order comes out. Nobody else's. No appetizer.
Oh, okay. Pause. So I'm the guy at the table. That if you bring my food out with my salad, I will send my salad back. If you bring my appetizer out with my food, you can take my appetizer back. I don't want that shit.
So, and I think it's worth noting, we didn't order them at the same time. We ordered the appetizer a solid 10 minutes before we ordered the food.
That's crazy.
So I feel bad because you can see the frustration of the entire wait staff. And I have this weird way where, like, I've talked about it before. I don't have a problem standing up for myself if I don't feel like I'm getting the service that I'm supposed to be getting or the product I'm supposed to be getting. But I'm a little bit different with, like, a waiter because I don't believe that this is his fault. You can tell that he's stressed out, and I don't want to add anything to his plate. So there's this kind of in between. And I kind of asked him, I was like, is the appetizer coming soon? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I'm really sorry. Like, this just came out first. Everything should be out hopefully soon. Hopefully soon, The hopefully was a lie. I take a bite of my food. It's cold. It's not hot. It's not room temperature. It is cold.
So this wasn't your order. This was somebody else's
no chance. Order. No chance. Stroz, if I had to guess, it had been sitting around for 15 minutes.
Oh.
It wasn't remotely warm.
So for sure now I'm grabbing a manager for sure, and I'm making a scene. I'm pissed.
15 minutes later, our appetizer comes out, and I tell him, like, hey, my food is cold. I was like, dude, like, it's not your fault, I'm sure, but like, I need to speak to a manager about the fact that my food was cold, and it came out 15 minutes before the appetizer. While I'm waiting for the manager, by the way, he kind of giggles, not in a happy way, in a very stressed, like, well, I'll see who he goes, our manager's super busy running all over the place. I'll get you somebody. Okay. Before I see said somebody, about 10 minutes later, a basket of fries come out. That basket of fries was somebody's side with their meal. One of the 5 people. Not like a table fry. Like, this was the fries that were supposed to come out with their meal. By the way, the appetizer was hot. The appetizer was solid.
Did you happen to ask him, like, are you guys short a cook in the kitchen? Like,
not yet. But we're all kind of, when the fries come out, we're like all laughing our asses off. Like, Holy crap, this is incredible. Like, the first step was my food. 15 minutes later was the appetizer. 10 minutes later was a basket of fries. And about 5 minutes after that, the manager, who I don't think was a manager, maybe like the highest level waiter, I don't know, he asked what's going on. I was like, hey, like my food came out way before our appetizer and it was cold. He asked, what can I do for you? And I said to him, ideally, you would replace this with a warm meal. I'm not super confident you can do that. He says, we'll put a new order in. We'll get you that out, hot. 20 more minutes later, at this point, we're all kind of like, this is just, are we ever going to get food? So to give you a sense of when this is about 10:20 p.m. 2 more meals come out. The first order for food was placed about an hour ago.
Dude, you've been there for over almost 2 hours now.
Yeah, pretty close.
Wow.
2 more meals come out. Remind you, there's 5 of us. 3 meals have come out. They're both cold. Waiter checks up on us about 20 minutes later, and we tell him, we're done. This isn't happening. You're not capable of providing food. This is just not going to happen. And somebody asked finally, someone goes like, what's going on? Like, why is it this bad? And the waiter says, we've had 3 people walk out today. And I told them, and obviously my waiter can't do anything, but I'd say we had at the beginning, he was way more stressed out. Towards the end, I think he understood that like we were chill with him. We weren't blaming him and things were a little bit more loose. I straight up told him, I was like, you guys shouldn't be taking people. Like, you're not capable of providing a service right now because we're watching people get seated. And we're like, you guys aren't capable of giving them food. Like, what? Yeah. Why are you letting people in the door? In fact, while this was going on, we spent like easily an hour just making jokes about how bad this was. One table came in, sat down like right next to us. About 10 minutes in, after hearing us like complain for that whole time, like jokingly, they just left. And we actually saw other people. There was another table waiting for their food. They left. They finally came back with their food, and it was like, oh, well, they're gone. Like, it wasn't even dying and dashing because they never got their damn food.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, anyways, it's 10:40 now. We've been there. All of us have been there for 2 hours. Only 3 meals have come out. They've all come out cold. They've come out stagnated. And so we're like, yeah, this is not happening. We're done. And he goes, totally understand. I'm sorry about that. Let me go get the bill. Before he bills us, he asks, what did you guys eat? I need to know, like, what you ate. And we're like, well, we ate the appetizer. I want to be clear here. I think they had no business billing us for the appetizer, but it was 5 of us. It was a $17 appetizer. We're like, no big deal. Like, we'll pay the appetizer. 2 hours and that being the only thing that was edible, like, throw us a bone or whatever. Well, meanwhile, this whole thing is going on, and one of the guys I'm with happens to know the owner of this place. So he's DMing him on Twitter. And by the time they bring us the bill around 11 o'clock, the actual manager comes out. And it was the most defeated I've ever seen a human being. Like, she came out, and I don't even know if she said anything right away. She just kind of looked at us, and she was like, so how you doing? And we're laughing. I'm telling you, we're laughing. We're like, oh, we're doing, whatever. Like, we all know what's going on here. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm not, you're not going to pay for anything. And I'm so sorry. Is there anything else we can do for you? We're like, no. I mean, ideally, you'd bring us food, but it's not happening. We get it. And we left about 11 o'clock, 2.5 hours after arrival.
And all you've had was an appetizer.
Yeah, basically. For 5 people. We tipped the waiter $25. $0 paid on the bill, so we all basically chipped in $5 for the waiter. And that was
good on you guys. Good on you guys. Which,
by the way, we made it like it was cash, and we like snuck it to him because we wanted to make sure like no one else was touching a piece of that. Like I literally, before we left, I went and like ran him down, just like handed it to him like we were doing a drug deal.
Yeah. Holy cow. It's like there have been multiple stages where I'd have lost my shit. And that's just because when it comes to food, I don't really have a lot of patience. Now, that being said, like I said, I've been in a situation similar to yours, probably not that bad.
I mean, this is incredible.
Yeah.
They should have closed. They had no business being open.
Like, was the manager in the back cooking? Because like, here's the thing.
It would not surprise me.
If the kitchen loses whomever kind of is the head of it all, the whole restaurant goes super sideways. And I tell you this from working in a restaurant. So it's nuts how important the back of the house is to what's going on with everything else in that place. So like if the main cook left and then you're left in like your short order cook left too, and then you're down a waiter or a waitress, there's your 3 people, right? Shut the bitch down. Because what you've got is you got a dude who basically knows how to make French fries, and he's trying to do everything. and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for everybody involved who was working. I think a manager, not that it's an easy call. Mm-hmm. I think a manager who knows what they're doing, like, makes that decision, even if the owner's going to be pissed, and says, look, all we were doing was absolutely ruining our reputation.
Yeah.
And
here's the question. Would any of you guys go back there? Like, you guys now understand the story, but, like, before you understood that story, would any of you guys ever have gone back there?
I do not believe anybody else I was with will ever go back.
Okay, see? And that right there, you just lost potential customers.
But beyond that, how do you not share this story? The reason I was totally fine with it is because it was so funny that I'm going to tell everybody I know about it. Everybody.
Yeah.
You're like the fourth. This is a podcast, but it's like the fourth time I've told this story. It's why I knew I needed to write down the timeline, because I was having a hard time, like, and this wasn't obviously exact. I just know I walked in the door at 8:30 and I left at 11. So I just tried to kind of segment it out as best as I possibly could in between that time frame.
I think the real question is, what did you end up eating that night when you leave at 11?
We went to a restaurant, a fast food, like 24/7, Whataburger.
Oh, is that any good, by the way?
I like it. Most of the people I know who visited say it's like way oversold by people from here, but I'm a big fan.
Okay.
I would say, and I'm telling you, I get killed for this take, approximately as good as Five Guys.
Ooh.
But I will say this: don't order a regular hamburger. They have 4 signature meals. Get a signature meal. It's all I get, and those are incredible. Anyways, away from Whataburger, I'm gonna just put one last cherry on the top of how embarrassing this was. The owner said to the guy who DM'd him, I want everyone's emails who's involved. I'll make this right. Stroz, this was Saturday. How long does he have to email us?
If it was Saturday, I would give him the weekend. I would say by at least Tuesday, you should have an email.
I don't have it yet.
Dude.
Like, even if you can't, like, give us, I mean, you're the owner, so you can. Mm-hmm. But let's just say you live in a world where, like, it takes time to, like, give us a gift card, or you're just not even going to give us a gift card, because that's what I assume was going to happen.
Yeah.
At least email us and say, like, I'm so just apologize.
Yeah, just like an apology email.
Coming.
Here's the thing: an apology email would go so far with me.
Absolutely.
Like, you owned it. Okay, cool. I'll give you another shot. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I will. The food's great. I've never had this kind of. I mean, their service is pretty traditionally not great, but it's never been that bad.
Yeah.
But I love their food, so I probably will. Now I'll tell you what, I'm not going there by myself. As somebody who is, I'll go out to eat by myself all the time. Mm-hmm. If I was there by myself, I'd have been so angry. Thankfully, I was there with a good group of friends and had a really good time. So that's why it didn't matter so much. Yeah. But if I have some friends who are willing to go again, I'm down. I don't care.
Here's a question for you.
Just don't go when you're starving.
When you go out to eat and you go by yourself, are you sitting at a table? Are you sitting at a high top? Or are you sitting up at the bar if they have a bar?
I'm sitting at a booth almost every single time.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. See, I would sit at the bar.
Most people do.
Yeah, I would sit at the bar for a couple different reasons. One, when you're by yourself, generally it's more communal, I guess.
It is. Absolutely.
And two, usually the bartender is pretty hot, so you can talk to her. And
yeah, but if you haven't gathered this,
you never know, B. You might end up going home with her.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't love situations where there's like it's your job to do this. Like, if you're a waiter or waitress, obviously it's your job to be friendly, mm-hmm. but you have the easy out of like walking away after you're done doing whatever you're doing. Mm-hmm. And if like, I will absolutely talk to a waiter or waitress if they're friendly, because I'm a social person, but like, I want them to have the natural out. I'm not against sitting at the bar, but it's weird to me to be in a situation where they're like, they're forced to be there in front of you.
They've got like 15 other people they can go take care of. They don't have to be right in front of you.
Yeah, they can take care of people 7 feet away from you. It's just not. I'm not like.
So like, are you gonna like sit? Are you gonna sit up at the bar and you're gonna be like, "Hey," we'll go. Well, her name will be Bianca. "Hey, Bianca, why don't you come back here? Bring that sweet ass over here."
Obviously,
like, no. You're not going to do that.
Obviously, I'm not. And dude, I've sat at the bar before with friends. I just personally, like, that situation isn't one that appeals to me. I'm not going to the restaurant necessarily to socialize. I'm just going because I like to go out to eat sometimes, and it's nice to go out to eat even by myself. I don't mind. I'm very cool doing stuff like that by myself. Now, this is an entirely unrelated story that I'm 100% sure I've shared on this podcast before, but it was a natural segue before we get into the last topic of the show, about the bad service I had. I've told this story now a bunch too because it's the perfect segue, but maybe the favorite memory I have in my entire life. That's a little hyperbole, but one of my favorite memories. I went to a TGI Fridays.
You getting a hand job, and then TGI Fridays is slotting at number 2 in the memory bank. He's thinking about it. I love you so much. By the way, just so everybody knows, B's letting his hair grow out. B looks so freaking sexy right now. It's nuts. He's got this grizzly beard, which is great. It's not like it's unkept or anything like that, but it is.
I will say,
his hair looks amazing.
The hair is not where I want it to be right now. But I do think the beard looks good right now.
Dude, the total package looks good.
Anyways,
on a scale of 1 to 10, you've been rated a 14.5.
I think that's a little excessive, but I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
ladies, watch out.
We had a waiter who very clearly, he was new and super nervous, and he was messing up left and right. And the one thing I remember, he messed up a bunch, but the one thing I remember that stood out was he brought out my soup without any silverware. And then he came back with a fork. And before he got to the table, because I saw him carrying the fork, and I was like, oh, my God, he's bringing a fork. Before he got to the table, I saw him realize that he had a fork and just turn around. And he was trying really hard, and I felt really bad for the guy. And so when we left, I left a really good tip, probably the best tip I've ever left in my life. And I stopped him before we left. I was like, hey, man, it's obvious you're trying really hard. Don't worry about it. Most people are going to get it when you're trying. It's not like you're, being lazy. And I felt good about that. 2-3 years later, I go back to that same restaurant, and both times I went, it was with my ex. And we're sitting there trying to figure out, we're like, is this that guy? He seems familiar. And after, after he sits, he comes to the table the first time to get our drink order. When he comes back, I ask, how long have you been working here? He goes, yeah, I remember you guys. And that was the coolest thing in the world. That literally years later, at least 2 years later, he clearly recognized us right away.
That's cool.
Because all I said is, how long have you been working here?
Yeah.
And it was really cool because I don't know. I remember personally wanting to help that guy, get up and help him wait tables. I have no experience, but I just felt so bad for the dude. And I just wanted to fit that in here because I love that story. It's definitely
that's cool. No, that's really, really cool. That's awesome. You made his day. Obviously you made an impact because he remembered you.
Yeah. No, it was really cool to get to see him again and know that he remembered it. Mm-hmm. But anyways, unless you have a brutal service story you want to share, I want to give you that opportunity. We can get into some Jared Goff talk.
I mean, I'm sure I've got something, but that wasn't the whole setup of this segment, so we're good.
No, I just wanted to give you a couple minutes if you needed it.
We can save that for another time. Let's go Jared Goff hunting here.
So, first of all, why do we think why is there a part of our brains that says maybe this man can return to MVP caliber form because he's a bad quarterback?
I think it's because we watched him in the Super Bowl, right?
That doesn't
he didn't do a very good job in the Super Bowl, but we watched him in the Super Bowl. He was part of a team that, with the right pieces and being put in the right position, he's a guy who can win. And that season, he had a pretty good year. And then he followed it up, I think, if I remember correctly, he followed it up with another pretty good year. The fall off really hasn't come until the previous 2 years. So the Lions get him maybe on the downside.
I think that me and you actually look at Jared Goff the same way for the exact opposite reason. I think the reason that the part of me says maybe Jared Goff can return to a year where he looked like a borderline MVP is because there's a part of my brain that's just so damn optimistic that it believes in literal miracles. Has nothing to do with him playing in a Super Bowl. I know he's not why they got there. I know he wasn't anything special in those playoffs. I'm just hey, he's done it before. Why isn't it possible he could do it again? Anyways, that's not the point of this topic either. I think it's so interesting. Us who have very different views on everything related to sports, feeling the same way, that there's this small part of us that wants to believe he can be damn good. But in reality, the ceiling is probably a good game manager. And neither of us want a good game manager long term. I asked you while we were figuring out the topic, how long would you be okay with him if that's what he is? You said 2 years. So that begs the question. We know Brad Holmes is a Jared Goff guy. We know that they reworked his contract in a way that makes it harder to cut him after this year. You get one of two scenarios. Either A, he's garbage and you know this guy is not your quarterback long term, or B, he looks like a game manager and maybe extends the length of time where you can wait and see on your guy at quarterback. Which one do you prefer?
I want him to be absolute trash. I want him to roll around like he is hot garbage, just lit in kerosene and gasoline, and there's nothing but matches all around him. I want him to be so brutally bad that there's no doubt in anybody's mind he's got to go. And the reason for that, this team, when I look at it, I don't think it's very good. I don't think they have a whole lot. We've talked about this ad nauseum. I think the best unit on this team is their offensive line. But that offensive line doesn't necessarily score you touchdowns. I don't think they have a ton of skill players, and I think that defense is still pretty bad. So him being that bad, it helps you with your draft pick next year to either A, go get that guy, or you can take that draft pick. If you come back with him for a second year, because the way the contract is structured, you can come back a second year, and they can be just as brutal. It allows you to then possibly trade back and add more pieces via the draft.
See, I kind of realized as we finalized putting this topic together, we've done a similar topic probably a couple times already. Because for me, what it comes down to is a fear that this regime believes in him too much. Mm-hmm. Because if I could talk to Brad Holmes with some truth serum, and he could tell me, oh no, we know that Jared Goff is not the guy long term, I tell you I'd rather see him be a game manager. Because a game manager is movable. And I'm not saying he's movable for firsts or even a firsts. But if Jared Goff, for example, looks like Kirk Cousins, and he's, how old is he? 20, I actually have no idea. 27?
27?
26, 27, 28. He's in his mid-20s.
I'll double check.
But say he looks like Kirk Cousins at that age, I don't think it's inconceivable. Somebody would be willing to give you a second or a third, not with his, uncuttable contract right now, but a couple of years down the road, I don't think it's impossible. You could turn him into an asset. I would almost say, look at what Carson Wentz, and he went for a first, if I remember correctly. If somebody was willing to take on Carson Wentz, somebody would really be willing to take on a Jared Goff who looks like a game manager.
He's 26, by the way.
So 26.
Yeah.
If for 2 years he looks like a game manager, somebody would be willing to take a couple of years on him. And so, if I had all the confidence in the world that wouldn't be enough to convince them that he's the guy, that would be my answer. You have the picks to go and get your guy when he's there. I'm just so damn scared that they won't. Stroz, I think that there is more than a 50% chance that they think Jared Goff is the guy.
And I think you might be right. And that's why
you can't like this regime and say that.
And that's why I want him to be so bad. Because here's the thing, I agree with you 100%. If he's a good game manager, you could trade him for something. And that was always my hope, right? He comes in and he looks decent for 2 years. And then you can move him for a third round pick or maybe even a second round pick if he looks really good and average.
Really good and average. That doesn't make
I don't think he's a top end quarterback. I think he's somewhere, he's lower middle. I don't think he's horrible, but I don't think he's good. I don't think he's top 15. I think he's 16, 17, 18, 19, maybe 20. I don't think he's great at all by any stretch of the imagination. And my hope was that he could come in and he could show that he's not a bad quarterback. He could come in and he could show that he could do some things really, really well, and you could possibly spin him off to get something back in return, and that would make that trade look even more amazing. But I don't, this is the thing, I don't know, and again, if we could get some truth serum for Brad Holmes, therein lies what we really want. Because if Brad Holmes is look, we're moving on after 2 years, that's the way it works, then okay, cool, game manager all day.
With that truth serum that Jared Goff is our guy, would you be out on this regime? Entirely out.
Yeah, probably.
So I wouldn't be entirely out, but I feel cautious optimism right now, and that would definitely change.
Would it all hinge on this upcoming season?
No. I think no, that's not fair. I don't think if they're committed to Jared Goff, and I hope they're not. He doesn't have the weapons to judge him fairly. You cannot throw him out there with Tyrell Williams and Rashad Perriman and say, "Oh wait, this guy's this bad." Now, if you're not sold on him, different story. But if you think he's the guy, he probably needs at least 2 years. So I wouldn't be entirely out because I do believe you can win with him as well. The problem is I don't believe you can win with him while paying him like an elite quarterback. I do think there's a chance, and this is speculation, it hasn't happened yet. I think there's a chance we're going to see very soon quarterback contracts normalize. Because so many teams have decided we can't justify paying mediocre quarterbacks when you can have somebody on a rookie deal. And so I think that middle to lower tier starting quarterback, I think it's conceivable we might see those contracts come down. If you can pay Jared Goff like he's the 20th best quarterback, I don't think it's out of the question you could put a team around him that lets you win. So I don't want to build that way. But if the league changes enough in the next couple of years that becomes the thing, I'll say this. It might not happen in time for it to be Jared Goff. In the next decade, I am confident quarterback contracts will normalize. Right now, there's this weird world where if you pay your quarterback, you have to pay him like he's the best. It will not look like that 10 years from now. I am confident in that. Because there are too many teams who have decided, you know what? We're not going to pay our guy. We're just going to go draft somebody. Every damn year now, teams are turning over so many quarterbacks so quickly.
Yeah, I don't think you can continue to keep paying quarterbacks and making them the highest paid player on your roster. I mean, the bar that was set with the Patrick Mahomes contract is unrealistic. That being said, let me ask you this: if you had your option of Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff, who would you take?
Kirk Cousins. I mean,
that was so like, damn.
So here's the thing.
Don't want either.
When you factor in the age, I would take Jared Goff because Kirk Cousins is 32. You're not building anything around Kirk Cousins if you're the Lions. Yep. But I think Kirk Cousins is the better quarterback right now. I do. Jared Goff literally has a noodle for a right arm. I might be able to throw a football as far as Jared Goff. I mean, not really, but he just doesn't. He's not a threat to throw the ball down the field, and that matters in the NFL. You need that.
That being said, you don't really have anybody who can take the top off the defense.
No, but you're not trying to win right now. I would hope when you're trying to win that you have that person.
I think Kirk Cousins is probably the better of the two, but neither one's very good, and I don't know how many games you can win with either one. So because of that,
Kirk Cousins has been on an NFC true NFC contender. It might have only been once with the Vikings. Or no, he went there after they were contenders, didn't he? My bad. I forgot it was Case Keenum.
That was Case Keenum who got him in the playoffs and got him past.
Your definition of got them is a little excessive. But it was Case Keenum who was the quarterback when they were contenders.
Yes.
Got them there.
He strapped him on his back and he was like, "Let's go. I'm getting you there."
Yeah, and when I go on road trips with my dad and he drives me across the country, it's me who got him there.
It's your story. You can tell it however you want, B. Look, I don't think either one of those guys is better, but I do think Kirk Cousins is probably the better of the two. And let that tell you what you're working with here in Detroit. You know what I'm saying? Let that sink in. Like if you were to put a hierarchy of quarterbacks together right now for the NFC North, there's a gigantic question mark in Green Bay. We don't know what the hell's going on with that. And
I would rather have Jordan Love.
Jordan Love?
Yep.
Ooh, wow. This might be something we table for next week.
The ceiling is higher, is all I'm saying. I just think the ceiling for Jared Goff is that he is Kirk. I think Kirk Cousins is the ceiling.
I think yes. I think that's the best way to put it. So okay, in the NFC North right now,
I'd
probably.
rather have Andy Dalton. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna say. Well, so right now Andy Dalton's supposed to be the starting quarterback for the.
But they got Justin Fields. That doesn't mean anything.
So,
I would definitely rather have Justin Fields.
Andy Dalton / Justin Fields, probably number 1 right now. Jordan Love, and then Kirk Cousins, then Jared Goff.
I'm going to say, Justin Fields / Andy Dalton 1. I'm going to say Jordan Love 2. Mm-hmm. If we're just going to say Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Yeah. Which I happen to think he's going to be playing there when the season starts. I'm going to say Jordan Love 2.
I think he might retire.
No way. There's no way.
Like, dude, he already missed out on a $500,000 roster bonus. He was like, screw that. I don't need that money. And now he's getting fined like $92,000 every day he misses OTAs. It's crazy. Now the OTAs, they'll just kind of wave a magic wand and I think those go away. But the roster bonus, you don't get that back, bro.
I don't know, man. I think he'll be there. But either way, say he's not. Jordan Love would be my 2.
He's a little bitter bitch.
He is. But
like that dude don't even talk to his own brother and his mom.
It's just so easy to play that game right now. It's not about he doesn't talk to his brother and his mom. Sure. Does he want to play football? Because if he doesn't show up, he's saying I'm done playing football. And I don't know that he's ready to make that decision. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not overly confident. I just think he will be there. But
this
if
might
he's
be something
not,
we table for later.
Sure. Jordan Love 2, Kirk Cousins 3, Jared Goff 4.
Jared Goff. Okay.
And I still think he is far and away the second best quarterback I will ever watch. Not ever, but have ever watched for the Detroit Lions. That's the expectation. All right. I think that'll do it for this one. Thank you for